Hi, I'm attorney Sigmund Collins here in Richmond, Virginia, and today I'd like to speak with you about preparing for your estate planning meeting. So now it's 2023, you've decided this is the time to get that estate plan done. You found an attorney you'd like to assist you in the process. Well, what do? How do you prepare for the meeting? What things should you do beforehand to make sure that that meeting is efficient and effective for you? Don't want to waste time. You want to get the most out of it. Well, here's what I tell my clients. And by the way, I use an intake form, as many attorneys do, that asks most of these questions. But I thought it would be helpful if I could tell you ahead of time what you can expect so that you can not only save time, but make sure you're really prepared for this meeting to get the most out of it. So here's what preparation looks like. It really boils down to two areas: possessions and people. Possessions and people. The very first thing that I would recommend you do is to create an inventory of all of your assets and liabilities. It means all the things that you own, your real estate. Think about the properties you own, your main home, any rental properties, any partial ownership in any properties, vehicles, financial accounts, banking, investment, pension accounts, life insurance. You want to think about things like heirloom items, special pieces of jewelry, coin collections, firearms. This is the time to think about all the things that you own, everything that you own, whether you're single, married, whatever the situation may be. You want to create an inventory of all of your assets. And that, by the way, also includes existing estate plan documents. If you have a will, an old power of attorney, that's going to be important for your attorney to see so that they can have an idea of what you already have in place. Now, as you're going through this inventory, we're not just talking about the assets, the stuff, the things you own. We're also talking about the liabilities. You want to take and make a list of your debts, of your bills. Well, why is that? Well, here's why. Your debts don't die with you, for the most part. The bills you owe, the bills that you owe as a living person, will pass on to your estate. And when you're making an estate plan, it's important for your attorney to know what those liabilities are so that you can account for them when drafting the plan. You don't want to leave your beneficiaries, your loved ones, in a situation where they've got to address debts and they don't either have the means or they just don't know how to go about doing that. You want to take that into account when you're preparing your plan. So those are possessions, and that's assets, it's liabilities. I didn't mention this earlier, but it's also intellectual property. If you're a business owner, if you hold a patent, a trademark, those are all part of the assets, all part of your inventory. So you want to sit down and just carefully go through everything and think about it and list it and have it in mind. That's the universe of possessions that will eventually pass on to someone else once you're no longer here. So once you've gotten your inventory together, once that's all set, you want to think now about people. Remember, I said possessions and people. And so when it comes to people, there are two subcategories. The first one is beneficiaries. Who are the people you want to inherit your items when you pass away? Now, the obvious people may be family, it could be friends, children, whoever, but they're not limited to that. Your beneficiaries can be organizations. They can be nonprofits. They can be churches. They can be institutions. They can be whatever you want them to be. In fact, they don't have to even be people or institutions. They can also be pets. That's right. If you want Lil Buddy and Mr. Whiskers to live out the rest of their lives in comfort and peace, we can come up with a plan that makes that happen. Right? So those are your beneficiaries. Give some thought to the people, the places, the pets, whoever they may be, that you want to inherit your items. Right? So that's important. So you want to set that aside. Now, finally, under the category of people, you want to think about the person or persons who will be responsible, your personal representatives, who will be responsible for carrying out your wishes. Remember, when you draft this will, you're not going to be around to make sure it's carried out properly. So when it comes to a will, you need to name an executor. In fact, it's good practice to not just name one person, but to name two people, a primary and a backup. In sports terms, you want to name a starter and someone to come off the bench in case something happens to your starter. So the executor in a will, the trustee in a trust, is someone who is going to have legal obligation and legal accountability to carry out the wishes of your document when you're no longer here. Now, not just for wills and trusts, you also want to think about an agent for your power of attorney. If you should become injured but still alive, who is the person you trust to carry out your business for you while you're still living? That's extremely important. Also with an advanced medical directive, if you're in a hospital, if you're undergoing some life-threatening condition, you're in surgery, and you have to give someone the ability to speak to doctors on your behalf, who is that individual? So obviously I can't tell you who that is, but I can tell you that when you choose these people, whether it's the executor, the trustee, or the agent, you want to choose someone who is both trustworthy and competent. That's important. They have to be trustworthy and competent. In other words, willing and able. I've had clients come in and we had this conversation, and more than one has said something to me like this. They'd say, well, I love my child and he or she is really trustworthy, they have a heart of gold, but the kid can't walk and chew gum at the same time. And my response to that is always, I hear you. That's probably not the person you want to be your executor. You want someone who you can not only trust, but someone who is competent and capable. Because again, being an executor, being a trustee, it's not rocket science, but it does take someone, it requires someone who has attention to detail, someone who can follow through, someone who can be responsible. So think about that and make that choice. And sometimes when you think about it, and I've had a couple clients come to this conclusion, they say, you know what, there's really no one in my life that I think fits that mold, who is both trustworthy and competent. And in that case, we can come up with an executor who might be the attorney. Sometimes the attorney agrees to serve as executor. Sometimes it can be an official, a bank official can serve as a trustee. You see that quite a bit, where a third party comes in to serve as a trustee. In any event, you want to give it some thought before you have the meeting with the attorney. And if you do that, it will make the discussion go so much smoother. It will also help you to figure out and have some really hard conversations if necessary as to who would be the right person to serve in that capacity. And also it helps you to have a more peaceful understanding of where your assets will go after you pass away. And then, of course, once you've made these decisions, you certainly want to have a conversation with the people who are going to be affected. When it comes to your executor and trustee, you want to talk to them beforehand, obviously, before you just put them down on paper. So once you do that, you'll be fine. So anyway, those are my thoughts. That's what I tell clients all the time. That's what I find to be most helpful. If you find this information to be helpful, then I'd like you to do two things. One, go ahead and share it with someone who you think would also be helped by this information. But also, be sure to follow this page. Follow me on Instagram and follow me on Facebook for a continuing series of weekly tips and suggestions that are designed to educate you on the legal process, especially in those areas that have a direct impact on your life and on your loved ones. Right? So once again, I want to thank you all for watching, and God bless.